Welcome to this explainer. Let me ask you something. Are you feeling just constantly exhausted by your digital life? Do you find yourself doom scrolling for hours on end only to finally look up and wonder where all that time actually went? Well, we usually think of this as a brand new 21st century problem, right? Like it's entirely caused by complex algorithms and the smartphones sitting in our pockets. But what if I told you the cure for our modern digital burnout actually lies in ancient medieval theology? Today, we're going to explore this really surprising tension between our modern scrolling habits and ancient spiritual willpower.
To really ground this, just listen to this incredibly relatable and honestly brutally honest confession from a user named Lena Hunt on the Lemonade platform. She writes, "I spend way too much time on it. I am 23 and I feel like I have no social life because I'm constantly watching TikTok." I mean, how many of us have felt exactly like that? We pick up our phones intending to do just one productive thing, and suddenly, boom, we're 40 minutes deep into a never-ending feed, completely forgetting why we even picked the phone up in the first place. It's a literal epidemic of digital exhaustion.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the roadmap for our journey today. Number 1, the TikTok exodus. Number 2, the power of will. 3, himma and charity. 4, fleeing worldly temptations. And finally, 5, reclaiming your intention.
Starting right off with Section 1, the TikTok exodus and digital fatigue.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at the actual reports from users who attempted digital detox. They basically reveal 3 core symptoms. First, we're dealing with severe time blindness. Users are reporting losing up to 6 hours a day mindlessly scrolling. Think about that. That's a huge chunk of your waking life just gone. Then there's the negativity. The constant exposure to toxic comment sections, those totally unrealistic beauty standards, and endless comparisons. It silently but profoundly drains our mental health. And finally, lost productivity. People are actively abandoning their real-world hobbies, they're giving up on reading books, and they're spending way less time out in nature. It is taking a massive psychological toll on us.
Which brings us to a pretty fascinating question. Is this digital exhaustion truly a new problem engineered by Silicon Valley? Or is this actually an ancient, timeless battle for human attention that's just playing out today on a glowing screen?
Let's move to Section 2, the power of will as a human faculty.
This brings us to the core human faculty that both modern scrollers and ancient scholars have wrestled with for literally centuries. The word is IRADA, which is the Arabic term for will or volition. The absolutely crucial point here is that in both the Islamic and Christian theological traditions, the will is viewed as a distinct, incredibly important human faculty tied directly to our moral freedom. These ancient texts argue that this ability to freely choose is precisely what elevates humans. It's something that beasts, who act purely on instinct, simply don't have, and angels, who act strictly on divine command, don't possess it in the same way either. We have the unique power to direct our own focus. But, well, here's the catch. Because our will is free, it is exceptionally vulnerable to distraction. If you've ever tried to put your phone down and failed, you've experienced a crisis of irada.
Moving on to Section 3, himma and charity, and how we manage this human will.
First, we have this profound framework from the Islamic Sufi tradition. The concept is called himma. It translates to spiritual aspiration, resolve, or the determination of the heart to incline itself entirely to a higher purpose. It's an active, powerful force. It's about deliberately turning your attention completely away from trivial distractions, which the scholars called al-khis, or inattention, and focusing intensely on an ultimate divine goal. Just imagine possessing that level of mental and spiritual focus today, where your inner resolve is actually stronger than any external notification buzzing in your pocket.
Now let's explore the Christian parallel, which is incredibly profound: charity, or agape in the original Greek. In its purest theological sense, this isn't just about tossing a few spare coins into a donation bin. It represents disinterested love and beneficent will. It's a deliberate, self-giving service to others that elevates you above your own selfish, immediate desires. Agape demands the exact same deliberate redirection of focus away from the self and away from trivial worldly things, channeling that human energy into something deeply meaningful.
And this brilliantly illustrates the deep underlying connection between these two traditions when it comes to managing human attention. The Islamic concept of irada requires the will to be actively directed by himma to avoid worldly temptation. Similarly, St. Augustine famously declared of the Christian will, the right will is well-directed love and the wrong will is ill-directed love. Both of these traditions are emphatically telling us the exact same thing: the secret to human flourishing is a will directed by pure, undistracted intention.
Section 4, Worldly Temptations and Ancient Warnings.
But what exactly are we supposed to be so distracted by? Well, from the New Testament, we see warnings like, do not love the world. And from the great Islamic scholar, Al-Ghazali, we read, the love of the world is the head of every sin and is the incurable disease. These ancient texts viewed worldly attachments, things like fame, vanity, endless trivialities, the desire to be seen, as a literal disease that corrupts the human will and drains our spiritual resolve. They understood, way back then, that the human mind easily gets trapped in the superficial.
Now, juxtapose that ancient warning about the incurable disease of the world with this very modern confession from Brielle, a user sharing her struggles online. She says, I spend hours on TikTok daily, hiding in it even longer, avoiding the things that are piling up. You see, the world that Al-Ghazali and the early Christians warned us about isn't just physical gold and ancient gladiator games anymore. Today, it's a digital world, pulling us in, completely paralyzing our ability to engage with our real lives and actual responsibilities.
Let's break down what these modern worldly temptations actually look like in our day-to-day lives. We're talking about endless doom scrolling that literally robs us of our time. We're talking about the unrealistic beauty standards and toxic comment sections that breed exactly the kind of envy and ill-directed love that Augustine was warning about. We stress over shadow-banning algorithms and get trapped in the mere illusion of productivity. Every single time we give our precious attention to these digital mirages, we are actively draining our himma.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Reclaiming Intention and Curing the Digital Disease.
Take a look at this really insightful quote from Marina China, a user who attempted a strict digital detox. She writes, "The plot twist? I came back, but now I actually know what scrolling does to my brain." You see, the goal of studying these ancient concepts isn't necessarily to smash your smartphone to pieces and flee into the desert forever. It's about building profound awareness of our own intentions and finally recognizing what is actively hijacking our will.
Let's move to Aryan and see how this builds into actionable steps. We can actually map the ancient Sufi and Christian steps of spiritual clarity directly onto the modern digital detox. Step 1. Turn away from distraction. Whether that means deleting the app entirely or doing a strict digital detox, you simply must break the sensory cycle of al-his. Step 2. Find pure intention. In the Islamic tradition, this deep sincerity is known as ikhlas. You have to know exactly why you are reclaiming your time, or you're just going to fill it with another distraction. And Step 3. Serve the community. This aligns perfectly with Hizmet in the Sufi tradition or agape in Christianity. It's about redirecting that newly reclaimed energy outward into self-giving service for others. And you know what? The data from user experiences shows us that this actually works. Users are reporting that taking just 30 days, a strict enforced screen-free detox, completely changes their mental landscape. One user in our sources reported that by using an app to literally lock themselves out of their phone, they dropped from 6 hours of daily scrolling down to almost 0. And the result? They started sleeping better, they finally read 2 entire books, and they essentially rebooted their brain. They reclaimed their time, and in doing so, they reclaimed their himmer. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with a really profound question to chew on today. In the endless, noisy feed of the digital age, what is your will truly directed toward? Are your daily choices driven by an algorithm meticulously designed to keep you scrolling? Or are you actively aspiring toward a higher, deliberate purpose? The choice, as the ancient scholars knew all too well, is entirely up to your own resolve. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this connection, and I really hope this empowers you to reclaim your intention today.